Go ahead, translate this.
The laughter started before anyone even knew exactly what they were laughing at. Just past 10 on a bright Monday morning, more than 30 employees sat around a glass-walled conference room and watched as a thick stack of handwritten documents got tossed across the polished table like a joke waiting to land. It landed in front of the building's janitor. The CEO leaned back in his leather chair, smiling the kind of smile that carries more pride in it than kindness. He thought he was about to humiliate a man nobody in that building ever really looked at twice. Everyone else in that room thought so too. What none of them knew, not one single person sitting at that table, was that in less than an hour, that same room would go so quiet you could hear a pen hit the floor. Before we go further, if you believe people deserve respect no matter what job they hold, drop a comment telling us where you're watching from and hit subscribe to Aftermath Tales, because this story is about to prove something every person in that room would never forget for the rest of their careers. Every weekday, long before the sun touched the skyline, a man named Adrian Mercer pushed his old bicycle through empty streets toward the Northbridge Financial Tower. While executives rolled up in luxury cars and managers rushed in gripping laptops and coffee cups, Adrian quietly let himself into the maintenance room, changed into his gray uniform, and got to work cleaning all 22 floors, completely alone, before most people even woke up. Nobody looked him in the eye. Nobody noticed that the floors stayed spotless because of him, or that every meeting room smelled fresh because he refused to do anything halfway, even for people who never said thank you. But behind that gray uniform, folded away like something he was almost ashamed of, was a story none of them could have guessed in 100 years. 3 years earlier, a highway accident had taken his wife's life in a single, unforgiving moment, leaving him to raise their 7-year-old daughter, Mila, completely alone. Every single morning, he packed her lunch, braided her hair after watching hours of tutorials just to get it right, and slipped little notes into her backpack telling her she was brave and smart and loved. After his shift ended, he rushed home to help with homework, cook dinner, and read her to sleep, then sat alone at the kitchen table surrounded by unpaid bills until his eyes gave out. What none of his co-workers knew, what nobody in that entire building had the slightest idea about, was that this quiet man pushing a mop had once been one of the brightest language scholars in the entire country. Years before tragedy hit, Adrian held real degrees in linguistics, specializing in forgotten European dialects and centuries-old trade documents most people had never even heard of. He had dreamed of becoming a university researcher, spending his life translating old manuscripts and preserving pieces of culture the world had nearly erased. But dreams do not survive grief and debt very easily. After his wife passed, medical bills swallowed every cent they had saved. Job offers disappeared. Interviews were missed while he was burying his wife and holding a crying child who didn't understand why her mother wasn't coming home. Eventually, the only job that gave him flexible enough hours to raise Mila alone was cleaning floors at Northbridge. But here's the part that matters most, the part nobody would have guessed. He never once stopped learning. While other employees scrolled through their phones on lunch breaks, Adrian read library books cover to cover. Every night after Mila fell asleep, he sat under a dim kitchen light, translating difficult texts just to keep his mind sharp, just to remember, quietly, who he used to be before life took everything from him. Inside Northbridge Financial Tower, everything was measured by appearance: expensive watches, polished shoes, big titles stitched onto office doors. The CEO, Victor Holden, believed intelligence always looked a certain way, and humility to him looked exactly like weakness. He'd built his entire reputation on demanding perfection while quietly tearing down anyone he decided didn't matter. Employees feared his sharp comments more than they feared missing a deadline, Most stayed silent, swallowing their pride just to protect their paychecks. Then one morning, everything changed in a way nobody saw coming. An international investment group delivered a stack of handwritten business records recovered from an abandoned European estate, documents connected to a forgotten land dispute tied to a billion-dollar redevelopment project. The problem was, nobody could read a single page of it. The writing mixed several rare, dying dialects that not one hired expert could fully translate. Consultants charged massive fees and delivered almost nothing in return. Weeks passed. Deadlines closed in fast. Tempers snapped in every meeting. As Adrian quietly emptied the recycling bin near the conference room that morning, he glanced at the papers scattered across the table, and something in his chest went completely still. He recognized the handwriting immediately, a 19th century regional dialect almost nobody on Earth still studied. Without thinking twice, he mentioned politely that one page looked like a merchant record, not a legal contract at all. The entire room froze. Executives exchanged glances before smiling like they'd just heard the funniest thing all week. Victor raised an eyebrow, clearly amused. Within seconds, the mood shifted from confusion straight into entertainment. Without taking him seriously for even a second, the CEO grabbed a handful of pages, walked across the room, and dropped them in front of Adrian with a smirk dripping in sarcasm. "Go ahead," he said. "Translate this." Laughter rolled around the table like it was rehearsed. Someone actually pulled out their phone, ready to record what they were sure would be a humiliating flop. Adrian picked up the fragile pages carefully, almost reverently, like they belonged somewhere far more sacred than a boardroom, and began reading in complete silence. His eyes moved line by line, and slowly, painfully slowly for everyone watching, the smirks around that table started to fade. He asked for a notebook. Someone handed him one, reluctantly, rolling their eyes as they did. Then he started writing, page after page, not just translating the words, but explaining the historical context, the trade customs, the family names, the legal terminology, even catching mistakes made by consultants who were supposedly the best in the world at this exact job. The laughter was gone completely now. Executives leaned forward in their seats. The legal team scrambled to cross-check his notes against archived records. Everything matched. Every single detail lined up perfectly, one after another. Then one attorney shot straight up out of his chair. Adrian had just uncovered a hidden inheritance clause that every single hired expert had completely missed. That one overlooked clause changed everything, unlocking property rights worth hundreds of millions of dollars that had been legally frozen for years. The room went dead silent. Nobody knew what to say. The same people who had been laughing minutes earlier now stared at the janitor like they were seeing a complete stranger standing in his place. Victor's confident posture slowly collapsed inward. For the first time in years, he realized he had judged a human being entirely by the uniform he happened to be wearing. And what did Adrian do the moment he finished? He quietly packed up his cleaning cart and went right back to work. No applause, no demands for credit, nothing at all. That single act of humility hit the room even harder than the translation itself had. A few younger employees followed him into the hallway just to ask where he had learned all of this, and that's when the truth finally spilled out, piece by piece. The degrees, the scholarships, the research awards, the dream he buried the same day his wife died. Every paycheck he earned went toward school lunches, rent, and Mila's future, never toward comfort, never toward himself. By lunchtime, the whole building was talking about nothing else. Receptionists repeated the story down every hallway. Security guards grinned proudly every time he walked past them now. Interns who used to ignore him completely started greeting him by name instead of just saying maintenance. Meanwhile, Victor sat alone in his office for nearly an hour, staring at his own reflection in the window, suddenly feeling smaller than the man he had tried to embarrass that very morning. Every sarcastic comment, every ignored hello, every careless assumption came rushing back at once, refusing to let him rest. That afternoon, Victor walked down to the maintenance room himself. He found Adrian fixing a loose wheel on his cleaning cart like nothing unusual had happened at all that day. Victor offered him a high-paying consulting position, several times his current salary, expecting instant gratitude. And here's the twist nobody expected. Adrian didn't say yes right away. Money mattered, of course. His daughter deserved real security. But respect mattered just as much to him. He looked Victor dead in the eye and said something that hit harder than any insult ever could. People should never need extraordinary talent before they're treated with ordinary dignity. Victor stood there in silence, unable to answer right away. Then, during the company's next weekly meeting, in front of every single employee, he apologized publicly. Not because shareholders forced him to, not because a reporter found the story, because his own conscience finally caught up with him after years of running from it. He admitted out loud that he had confused appearance with ability and status with character. Several employees wiped away tears as he spoke. Some quietly remembered every time they had done the exact same thing to someone else without even noticing. Within months, the entire company changed from the inside out. Northbridge introduced new programs letting every employee, cleaners included, contribute skills far outside their job description. A security guard's safety idea cut workplace accidents in half. An assistant software fix saved thousands of work hours a year. One decision, born from one uncomfortable moment of humility, rewired an entire company's culture for good. Adrian accepted the consulting role, but he never stopped mentoring young language students on weekends, refusing to let go of the people who reminded him of himself. And with his new income, he finally bought the small house his daughter had dreamed about, the one with a little garden where she planted flowers in memory of her mother. Years later, a bronze plaque still hangs beside that same conference room. It reads simply, "Never underestimate the person standing quietly in the corner, because greatness often wears the most ordinary clothes." Employees pause to read those words nearly every single morning, whether they mean to or not. As the evening sun poured through their new home's windows, Adrian watched his daughter run through the garden laughing, carefree for the first time in years. He didn't need to prove anyone wrong to feel like he'd already won. Life rewarded him not because he beat the people who doubted him, but because he never let grief steal his humility or his hunger to keep learning, even when nobody on earth was watching. If this story moved you even a little, drop a comment and tell us what part hit you hardest. Share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and make sure you're subscribed to Aftermath Tales, because we've got so many more stories exactly like this one coming your way very soon.